Alright guys, TacticalRabbit here today, and there's a number of things to talk about. I was planning on this video to talk about the Stock 2 potential gentleman's agreement on the SAUG, and that will be the main focus of the video towards the end. But firstly, I want to touch through a load of news and rumours that have come out over the last day or so, and I'll definitely go more in depth on these as and when they are confirmed. But the main one really has been the potential for Fero to get dropped from this 100 Thieves lineup, or potentially benched or anything like that. Now, I didn't think this was a possibility looking through the handbook, but supposedly there is some sort of loophole maybe that 100 Thieves have managed to exploit, which means they can make a roster change earlier than was intentional. So we'll go through that in just a second. Don't want to go too in depth, as I say, because I'll touch on it as and when it is confirmed. Supposedly meant to be confirmed tonight at some point. Not too sure how much I believe that, but if it's true, then I'll cover it tomorrow, or whenever it happens to be the case. So like if you enjoy, subscribe if you are new, as always, all that good stuff, and let's get right into it. So Fero tweeted this out yesterday. Backstabbed so many times I started walking backwards. He also took 100 Thieves out of his name, out of his Twitter bio. So this is what I was talking about yesterday on the substitute situation, because yes, every team must have a substitute from outside of the Pro League, and it says they can be used in any regular season match, Pro League Cup or Championship event, so long as the roster submission rules are adhered to. But further down it says here, teams are only permitted to make a substitute request for an entire week of regular season play. They will not be permitted to field a substitute from match to match. So that implied that, okay, the rosters are locked until the start of March, when the roster change situations can come into place, but they can use their substitute if required for a week, which seemed to prevent players who had just qualified from getting dropped immediately. But supposedly there is some sort of loophole where 100 Thieves can put Fero on the bench, and then they can get their substitute into play. And it does say that if it's explicitly permitted by the administration, then this is possible, but I assume there'd have to be some extenuating circumstance like a retirement or a severe illness as why that would be the case, but supposedly not. And apparently Fero's off the team. Who will replace him? Who knows? Whether it's the right pick, I don't know. But regardless, I'll talk about that more down the line. Priester and Decimate have been names that have come to mind very recently, but we'll have to see how that goes in the coming days. A few other things to mention on the substitute situation. We have Parasite saying that it's a slim chance he'll get a sub spot on a CWL team. No one approached me with coaching opportunities, so I'm certain it is. So that's the situation with Parasite as it seems right now. His stream is also very successful. Yesterday in the Pro Down, he was 1,000 viewers plus, something like that. I might cover the Pro Down tomorrow as well. Bit of a weird one with, not all the teams fielding their full rosters, but I'll probably deal with the results at least in tomorrow's video. And yeah, so Parasite unlikely to get a spot on a CWL team. His stream does do really well. The colour correction on that is superb, but regardless, that's the situation with Haggy. A couple of substitutes have been announced. Maybe more will be announced by the time this video goes live, unfortunately, but that's just how it is. GodRx is going to be the EG sub. I was talking about the potential of maybe even getting Revan in as the sub, but GodRx is the man for them. And we also have for Splice, we have Happy. Now this is a name you may not have heard in a while, also known as Suda. I don't know, haven't really heard him being called by that too much, but this is a prominent name for a few years now, and he hasn't really been around the block in World War II and at the start of this game, but Splice are getting him in as a sub, basically because they're friends with him. And yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. It kind of shows how not important subs are for these pro teams, because I'm not going to need a substitute. I'll just get my friend in who's happy to play for, I don't know, even for free or something, to potentially get some exposure to get back on a top team. So yeah, an interesting one indeed. Maybe another thing I could have mentioned in yesterday's video. And yes, then we have this from Morgs, who is on Spacely's team, of course, that qualified for the league. Officially contracted, can't wait for the reveal. So supposedly, these guys are going to a pretty high-tier organisation. And the denial rumour that was around this team, supposedly now they are buying Overtime, the French squad. So that's how it seems right now, but we'll have to see when the reveal comes out in a couple of days' time. Then I wanted to chat quickly about league play. So this tweet from Tony Flame, which I quoted. I also just hit 1,000 followers on Twitter, so if you guys want to help pump those rookie numbers up, baby, then the link's in the description box below. Thanks a lot if you're already following me, of course. But regardless, Tony Flame, who's some developer at Treyarch, he said that league play is a huge priority for us. We want to do our absolute best and deliver the definitive competitive experience. Know that we are listening on all channels. The team is working hard to deliver a lasting league system, and there is more info coming next week. And yeah, so it seems like more info coming next week when it said it was going to be here early 2019. Then late January, and now we're getting more info late January. You know, what can you even say at this point? This is one interesting thing though, if this will ever load on the patch notes for January the 25th. They say here that we'll have more news to share next week about the upcoming rollout of League Play in the World League Hub. We've made some fundamental changes to the rank system since we first announced our plans. So I discussed those plans at length initially. You may have watched that video, I'll link it down below. Basically, the idea was that it would be scrims during the week, apart from special league play events. So basically, everything was unranked unless you could play on the weekend, which was really stupid. And regardless, so apparently they're going to be changing those sort of things. Then they say, as well as numerous important updates to the CWL rule set that will change how the game is played competitively for the better, which seems to imply the implementation of gentlemen's agreements, because this guy, I think Matt TKS or something on the subreddit, he's like the competitive game designer, whatever. He implied on Reddit that Ajax or Ajax, whatever the hell, he is likely to be banned from competitive play coming up very shortly. So maybe if other gentlemen's agreements come into the CWL rule set, then potentially league play actually might be some fun to play, which, you know, if it ever arrives, it would be great stuff. So let's go on to what I actually wanted to talk about, which is Stock 2 on the SAUG. This is a tweet from JP Krez. He says, 7 of the top 10 players in adjusted KD at the Pro League qualifier were SMG players: Envoy Z, Kismet Hugh, Robbie Beam and Lacefield Royalty. And also he then said in a reply to that Lucky could also be a potential player to include in that as well, because he was kind of a flex Lucky of Heretics using a SAUG sometimes. And yeah, so Slasher quotes the tweet saying, Stock 2, what an attachment. And pros have been talking about this for a while, because Stock 2 on your SAUG, you need to put Stock 1 on it first, and then you put Stock 2 on. And you can strafe ridiculously quickly. Like quicker than walking speed, I think, or at least very close to. It's just mind-blowing how quickly you can move with Stock 2, and the fact that it also lets you drop shot and it lets you jump shot with perfect accuracy has led a lot of pros to consider this to be maybe too strong. And when you play public matches, when you play GBs, you may not have noticed this too much, but yesterday we played a team in GBs and they were just rocking 3 of these SAUGs with Stock 2, and you could not keep up with them. It was mental. So anyway, a lot of the pros have thought, okay, if we ban Stock 2, Stock 1 on the SAUG is still pretty damn good. It does the job. It fills the role as a normal SMG. They just think that Stock 2 is maybe too strong. So Scump agrees with this assessment, and he says that there are only 2 or 3 teams that want it in, have been preaching it's broken. And the 2 or 3 teams, according to Clayster, Splice, number 1, Midnight, number 2, and Evil Geniuses, number 3 of the teams in the league. Now, Splice with Jerd, I'm not surprised that Jerd is like, you know what, there's no reason to put myself at a disadvantage when I have the meanest shoulder peak game in the game. And, you know, we saw what he was doing at Vegas with Stock 2, and I'm sure he would continue it up now if it gets continued to be allowed. And of course, yes, if the pro teams don't all agree, then that's just unlucky. I guess that's just the way of the land. When you have developers that aren't going to be crazy respondent to banning these types of things, even with the consensus majority of the community. So, from Splice's perspective, I'm sure they feel like with a guy like Jerd on their team, if we get rid of Stock 2, that shoulder peak and potential isn't going to be there in quite as much force, and that's maybe one of our main attributes. Midnight is an interesting one because they have this guy called Envoy, of course, who was a fantastic player at the Pro League qualifier. He was number 1 KD overall, and he only used 2 attachments on his SAUG. Usually you see, okay, an SMG, put quick draw on it, put grip on it, put Stock 1, Stock 2, maybe if you want. This guy used Stock 1 and Stock 2, and that was it. No quick draw, no grip. So an interesting little meta shift there, and I'm sure he doesn't want it gone because he was demolishing people with that crazy quick strafing mechanic that is possible with double stock on your weapon. And yeah, as Slasher says, with a lot of the top KDs being SMG players, does tend to imply that that gun is really rather strong right now, and he thinks it's a Stock 2 attachment which is causing a lot of that. The third team, Evil Geniuses, they have a guy like Exotic, they have Royalty, of course. These kind of SMG players, and Felony, I think, still on the team, right? And yeah, a lot of SMG talents on that team, and they clearly feel like they want Stock 2 still in the game because it would be to their benefit. So it's always an interesting situation, a gentleman's agreements one. I did make a video on this a while ago that you guys can check out if you're interested. So this is a really long thread with Parasite giving some arguments, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts, of course, on all of these topics that I discussed today in the comment section below, because a lot of people would say that If stock 2 is gone, then we need the other double attachments. The quick draw 2, the grip 2, of course, on the ICR, gone as well. So Parasite had some interesting opinions on whether or not this is a viable argument, and yeah, I'll just scroll through it here because I don't really have too much of an opinion on this. I do kind of think that stock 2 is a bit too strong. I also think quick draw 2 is questionable. I don't really have an issue with grip 2 though, because without grip 2 the ICR is woefully bad. It's already getting snuffed out of competitive play as it is, so if you get rid of grip 2 then it would completely go down the pan. Yeah, so anyway, but let's go through this tweet thread. If stock 2 gets GA'd, I'll only agree if all 2 attachments are GA'd as well. That's what Nelson says. And yeah, so Parasite comes in here. So the spamming trigger thing, which you may have seen the pros do, with the Maddox especially, you can also do it with other ARs, but with the Maddox especially, you spam left trigger, it helps you move quicker. So some people think that's down to quick draw 2. Parasite, and I'll take his word for it, says that's down to the stock attachment rather than the quick draw 2 attachment necessarily. So getting rid of that wouldn't necessarily prevent the issue we have right now with the spamming trigger thing, which is kind of a game glitch, I guess you could say. So further down what Parasite says, Maddox needs a nerf, quick draw 2 does not. Stock 2 needs a nerf, or it needs to go. It allows you to jump shot accurately, strafe at 70% increased speed, prone seamlessly, which I think is a bit of an issue with the game right now, is because you have some guy proning down or drop shotting you with the SAUG, and he can lay down and happily stand back up again with the SAUG like you couldn't with another weapon, and it makes it a little bit annoying, the fact that he can do that with a SAUG, no problem, but if I have a Maddox, I can't have a similar advantage. Bit annoying. Grip 2 is fine. Only usable gun isn't even multi-purpose. It's buns at anything except headies and wallbanging, which is, of course, about the ICR. The Maddox is definitely the strongest gun in the game right now, I would say. Like, overall, the Maddox is the best. But the SAUG with stock 2, especially in a 5v5 setting when a lot of these maps are close range combat, or something like frequency, the SAUG is rife. And with stock 2, especially in the hands of a pro where they really know how to abuse that left trigger, the SAUG is arguably a better gun than the Maddox in the right hands, on the right maps. And maybe that's something that these guys are concerned about. So regardless, Parasite says, we aren't banning a gun. The SAUG is good without stock 2, the Maddox is okay without quick draw 2, and the ICR is unusable without grip 2. Which means the SAUG is actually the best weapon. Stock 2 isn't necessary, but it sure is incredible. The others are needed for the weapons to be relevant. So I'm not sure I fully agree with Parasite here. I do think the Maddox is a better weapon overall in terms of it's a do-it-all gun, but I get what he means. In professional play, and as I say, on the generally close quarter combat maps, the SAUG really does run the game and tends to increasingly so throughout a game's life cycle. The more the months go by, the more players figure out how to move quicker and, well, how to play the game at a faster pace, and the SMGs become increasingly prevalent and the ARs go away. So maybe to counter for that situation and to give AR players something of a chance, because if you've played against a guy that's good at using stock 2, it is just horrible to deal with, and definitely it could be considered too strong. So I'd be interested to hear your guys' thoughts on this as always. Leave them down in the description box below. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new as always. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Alright, round back down. Bomb online. It's the boys.
Let's not do that.
You got this.
You know?
Yeah, we got this.
You got this. Jesus Christ, you got this. Oh, actually might got this.
Enemy details down to 1. Finish this.
What's the emu doing? What's the emu doing? What's the emu doing?
Oh, just shout out there, boy.
What's the emu doing is such a good sentence, actually. I love that so much. Seriously though, what is the emu doing?
Okay, I don't know what the emu was doing, I'm not gonna lie to you.
Bamboozled us there with that one, like, what the fuck was that?
This is the kill that
This
gets
guy
it
was
as
like
well.
pre-firing you. What is the emu
I get
doing?
both of them,
Oh, I
maybe
see
that's
it
what I'm
again.
talking about. Yeah, like the Eevee was
What
pre-found
is
as if I
the
could only
Eevee
come from there.
doing?
I guess he thought I would be able to kill him in
some
Spain.
Switching